This is another important session, John. A turning point for your professional life, turning you toward a higher, more clear-thinking position.
I'm excited, Carlos, ready to listen to your thoughts and comments about changing the seen and shaping the unseen. What does that mean?
Management at most companies today is in denial, John. As a result, management is short-sighted, and by not having the correct information at hand, it doesn't know what is happening today and how today's events will be reflected in the future. So, if they don't know that, everything they do won't work. Why? Because their decisions are based on wishful thinking, John.
I agree, Carlos. I myself was in denial before starting this series of mentoring sessions and learned through your e-learning programs the fundamental difference between a tactician operational CEO or executive and a strategic thinking CEO. I still remember the positive impact that our first mentoring session had on me, titled The Leadership Mindset for Turbulent Times. By the way, I was shocked to learn that research from respected institutions shows 35% of executives, including CEOs, are wishful thinkers, and 50% have limited knowledge and little understanding about how a business works in a fast-moving and turbulent world.
Correct, John. Correct. 85% of CEOs and executives, unfortunately, don't master the key skills to succeed in a fast-moving and turbulent world. That is why we wrote the CEO Who Sees Around Corners book. A fast-moving and turbulent world is akin to a tsunami. You cannot outrun a tsunami. It moves faster than you or your car can travel. The only way to avoid being engulfed by a tsunami is to climb to higher ground before the waves arrive. If you wait for an official tsunami warning, it's probably too late. In today's fast-moving world, the growth of knowledge is like a tsunami.
Yeah, it's true, Carlos. New knowledge overtakes and engulfs you, unless you start climbing today before any warning to the fourth or better, fifth stage in the leadership mindset. This is the only way to survive and thrive in a turbulent world.
An accurate strategic thinking CEO always considers both the effects that can be seen and those that must be foreseen. A tactician operational CEO, on the other hand, confines himself or herself to visible effects alone. This may be the only difference, but the difference is tremendous, for it almost always happens that when the immediate consequence is favorable, the later consequences are disastrous, and vice versa. Thus, it follows that the tactician pursues a small present good that will follow by a great evil, John, while the accurate thinker pursues a great good to come at the risk of a small present evil. John.
Confining himself or herself to the visible is how a tactician operational CEO, or 85% of the executives today, contracts the self-inflicted damage disease that makes him or her not only short-sighted, but also completely unaware of his or her short-sightedness.
In business, the most damaging attack, John, is always self-inflicted. Always self-inflicted. That is due to the law of incompetence.
Carlos, could you expand on that? What does the law of incompetence mean?
Actually, John, first, it's important to understand the Peter Principle, a concept in management formulated by Lawrence Peter and published in 1969. It states that the selection of a candidate for a position is based on the candidate's performance in his or her current role. John, rather than on abilities for the new position. It's crazy, but true, John.
I didn't know about the Peter Principle, but I assumed that such a principle today would be obsolete in a fast-moving world. You can be an excellent and efficient sales VP, but without the required competencies, you'd be an ineffective CEO. A fast-moving world makes everything obsolete.
I will not say obsolete, John. In fact, it's still valid today. However, the Peter Principle became obvious in a fast-moving world. Let me be more explicit with another example, as it is an important principle. Let's say you are a brilliant marketing executive. You know everything about your clients and work with amazing efficiency, creating value maps and successfully positioning your products or services in the market. After a few years, you are promoted to Chief Executive Officer, a reward for your skills and competencies. There you are, probably having risen to a level of incompetence, and likely unaware of it, John, Your marketing skills lie dormant while your new position requires new skills. Surely, you are a good communicator, but since you have not been prepared to acquire new skills required by your new duties, you fail as a CEO. You fail as a CEO, John.
I should recognize this as it has also happened in my organization. But by now, I learned that without continuous learning, it's impossible to become a leader for a fast-moving and turbulent world.
That is where the law of incompetence comes into play, John. It's such a bias in which low-ability individuals suffer from illusion superiority, mistakenly assessing their abilities much higher than reality.
I understand, Carlos, but how does the Peter Principle and the law of incompetence apply today? Is that why 85% of CEOs and executives are not prepared to manage a company in a fast-moving and turbulent world?
That is why I call today's session a point of inflection, an event that results in a significant change, in fact, a dramatic change in the progress of your company, your people, and you, John.
Hey, a question, Carlos. How do the Peter Principle and the law of incompetence correlate with the title of today's session, The Leadership Mindset for Turbulent Times?
Here we go, John. Any executive committed to succeeding in turbulent times needs to know three important things that are not taught in our educational system today. The first is a strategic awareness, subject of today's session. The second, purpose. And the third, systems thinking.
What does strategic awareness mean?
Strategic awareness is about knowing what happens around you and your business. When you acquire strategic awareness, your business comes with new ideas and innovations are constantly generated. Look at the screen, John. Let's walk through it.
I can see everything starts with data and information. I also see truth. What does it mean?
Truth is an agreement with facts, only facts, not wishful thinking. Yes, John, everything starts here and, unfortunately, ends here for most companies. Why? Because the truth is not present in most cases. Management collects data and manages information based on dubious assumptions. John, and wishful thinking instead of reality. Intelligence asks for accuracy, free from error. It starts with gathering right data. Only then you can come with realistic theories that lets you see what others don't. Sadly, those theories are sometimes influenced by personal or political agendas. So, if you look for the truth, you are aware. And If you are unaware or in denial, you have no idea what's going on. It means you were caught off guard or by surprise. Either way, you have got your head in the clouds about something important that is happening around you. Think for a moment. That is what happened to all of Marissa Mayer's 52 Yahoo acquisition. The reason for Yahoo's decline are complex. But what is clear is that those acquisition rescue strategy has not been able to save the company from itself. I can tell you other examples, like Kodak and BlackBerry. Management for those companies were unable to see the unseen. They were tactician operational incompetent strategists. The Peter principle in law of incompetence in action, John. How in the world can you look at something you cannot see? You probably wonder, John. I'm talking about how a business creates wealth. These are forces that are unseen for those executives unable to see how to connect the dots in a business. Now, executives having business understanding are able to see natural forces, which always, John, work when you set them in motion.
Carlos, in fact, since you can't see the unseen, you're unaware of it. So you can't shape the unseen. There are opportunities around you, but you can't see the unseen. Thus, you're only seeing risk where others see opportunities.
Correct, John. That is why everything starts, and for most executives, ends here, with collecting data and managing information. Why? Because with denial or lack of skills, you are unable to shape the unseen.
In other words, Carlos, most businesses are trapped in their own denial-created world. So, what is the next component? I am becoming more and more excited to know everything about the 6 mandatory components of awareness, Carlos.
The second component of awareness is knowledge. There are 2 types of knowledge, John: intellectual and practical. Intellectually, I can explain to you how to ride a bike. But this sense of how does not imply that I can or have the ability to do so. Having the ability to ride a bike involves some sort of practical knowledge. And this practical knowledge is distinct from having intellectual knowledge. Both, however, are important to succeed. Academia delivers intellectual knowledge alone. Intellectual knowledge alone, John. But that is pure theory. You can learn everything about business models and a strategic competitive position. There are thousands of books about it, written by professors and gurus. However, intellectual knowledge needs to be actionable to succeed in your professional life. So you need practical knowledge. That is how to do it. I rarely see in my entire global career executives excelling at both intellectual and practical knowledge. And those who excelled in practical intelligence were most of the time operational tacticians. What that does mean? It means that what they need to succeed in a fast-moving world is to learn by doing, how to build unique business models and designing singular competitive positioning strategies. What I'm telling you, John, explains why companies are unsuccessfully looking for talented, accurate thinking strategists. Why does this happen? Because our educational system doesn't deliver practical knowledge.
You're so right, Carlos. They don't know these 3 duties of a CEO in turbulent times such as today. Set the strategic direction, set the cultural tone, and build the organizational team. Most CEOs subcontract their strategic direction to their staff, the cultural tone to their human resources department, and the organizational team to external consultants. Most CEOs ignore that they are solely responsible for their organization's success or failure.
Correct, John. Without a clear job description in their own minds, CEOs can easily get distracted and neglect the core issues that organizations vitally need to focus on. Those CEOs lack of business understanding, which, as you can see on the screen, is the third component of awareness.
But what does business understanding mean? I thought knowledge was enough to succeed in a fast-moving world.
No, John. Knowledge alone is not anymore enough to succeed in a fast-moving world. There is so much data, so much new knowledge required to succeed in this new world. It's true, you can be drawn by data, input, information, so much new knowledge that you cannot connect the dots on anything. However, since everything is in turmoil and everything changes, you need to understand the business to connect the dots. Business understanding means knowing the fundamental truth of how a business should work to continuously, John, create wealth. I repeat, John, create wealth under any environment, leveraging all the forces available through all the members of the business ecosystem.
Carlos, I'm sorry to pose two more questions to you. What is a business ecosystem and why wealth and not profits?
A business ecosystem is a community of interacting organizations and individuals producing goods and services of value for customers, who are themselves members of the ecosystem. The members also include suppliers, lead producers, competitors, and other stakeholders, including employees and banking institutions. Over time, their capabilities and roles evolve and tend to align themselves with the directions set by one or more central companies. I will expand more about business ecosystems in part 3 of this series, John. Wealth includes profits, as well as sales, and in particular, assets, selected tangible and intellectual assets that let your company continually create wealth. Do you remember the strategic wealth creation formula, John?
Of course I do, Carlos. Management's most important job is to make wise choices in allocating its assets. Anybody can make a profit by throwing a ton of money at assets, but very few managers excel at making large profits with very little investment.
So, let's go back to the third component of awareness, business understanding. Then you will understand what connecting the dots means for the future of your business. Business understanding means 3 things for an executive. First, know how a business creates wealth year after year. It means knowing the different leverage points, John, in a business ecosystem, where force can be applied. I'm talking particularly about a high leverage point in a business ecosystem, in which a small amount of force causes a big and good change to the business ecosystem. It lets a business continuously create wealth. Second, be able to be clear on what event or events you are looking for to connect these different and distant leverage points to attain different strategic goals. It could be increasing the number of active clients, increasing sales or increasing profits, or any other element that, when leveraged and connected, creates wealth in a business. Third, be able to create different, repeatable, practical, strategic thinking processes for making them scalable, easy to perform, and in time, more and more powerful.
I see, Carlos. Business understanding requires not only intellectual and practical knowledge, but commitment to constantly look to find new ways to find leverage points in the business to become better at it. Can you show me an example of connecting leverage points in a business?
Of course. Look at the screen, John. What do you see?
I see an executive with a perplexed state of mind, and behind him are the laser sales and wealth creation formulas.
And what do you see right now on this news screen?
I see more words all around him. He's apparently lost. He's really perplexed.
Correct, John. He has knowledge, but he doesn't understand. Why? Because he lacks business understanding. He's unable to shape the unseen. He's unable to shape the unseen, John. Here he is, like after reading a best-selling book about how to strategize. A lot of intellectual knowledge, but no thinking process to convert theory into practice. Why does this happen? Because most gurus and academics lack business understanding. In fact, most never manage the business. So they cannot transfer a skill that they don't have.
I see right now how important business understanding is, and also understand now why business understanding is out of the ordinary skill set taught by academia. I also know the meaning of 85% of executives lacking the skills to make their companies thrive in a fast-moving and turbulent world. The Grow Mindset chart clearly illustrates that.
What do you see now, John?
I see business understanding in action, Carlos. It's changing the seen and shaping the unseen. How many leverage points do you have identified, Carlos?
There are 30 dots in this example, and over 20 leverage points in red in this image, with probably over 200 leverage points I have identified and made actionable through thinking processes I developed during my 40 years career. What you don't see yet are the different thinking processes used to connect the dots in a business.
I'm compelled to say, Carlos, how passionate and excited I am about seeing the opportunities my people and I have to acquire business understanding. Any doubt in my mind that this session represents an inflection point for our business?
What you see in this new screen, John, is the missed ingredients for success in a fast-moving world in our educational system today. I would suggest you to pause to let you read the chart.
How do I learn business understanding and connecting the dots in my business?
In fact, John, you and your people have already started to do it. And that is how you and your people will look after following our program. I suggest to pause to carefully read all texts in this image. After toolkit number 1, you will next learn by doing how to create a unique customer value proposition for your business and for each one of your products, services representing 80% of your sales. Next will be each one of the other 4 strategic thinking processes, as you see in the screen, John. I make a pause to let you read it. Click at the bottom left to advance, John. So let's walk through the last 3 components of awareness, John. The fourth is mental models, the power that changes the course of destiny for any business.
I have already learned that, Carlos. Let me define it to see if I understood why mental models have the power to change the course of my business. A mental model is an explanation of someone's thought processes and how something works in the real imagined world, the relationship between its various parts, and a person's intuitive perception about his or her own acts and their consequences.
Correct, John. You clearly understand why mental models changes the course of destiny. Mental models can help shape individual and corporate behavior. It's akin to an algorithm, a set of steps, thoughts, that has the power to change, for better or worse, your destiny. Now, you clearly see why being in denial makes business understanding worthless. You can be an accurate thinker and still fail to succeed, John. You can be an accurate thinker and still fail to succeed. Always look for the truth, and nothing but the truth. It's mandatory to strategize in a fast-moving and turbulent world.
Let us walk now through the fifth component of awareness, mindset, growth or fixed. What does that mean?
There are people convinced that you are born intelligent or not. So they have a fixed mindset. They believe in EQ tests, and if their EQ is low, they conclude they are not smart. Consequently, they think they will never become an accurate thinker executive. They think it's worthless to try to learn new skills. Of course, they are wrong. They are wrong, John. Why? Because IQ measures teachable skills rather than innate ones. I repeat, John, because it's important. IQ measures teachable skills rather than innate ones. Then you have people like you, committed to continuously learning to develop new skills they need in a fast-moving world. They have a growth mindset.
I see, Carlos. That is the reason why many CEOs without a growth mindset don't invest in developing their own or their employees' learning. For them, continuous learning is worthless. They are, in fact, afraid that if their people learn new skills, they will decide to leave for better pay elsewhere.
And yet, John, the reality is most executives decided to leave a company for lack of opportunities to grow there, not for pay alone. So let's walk through the sixth component of awareness.
That is corporate behavior, results in habits.
Correct, John. Corporate behavior is the actions of a company's employees collectively or as a group of people acting as a single body. It defines the company's ethical strategies and awareness. Look at Apple and compare its corporate behavior to Hewlett-Packard. What do you see?
I see the corporate behavior at Apple exemplified by its intense work ethics and professionalism. Although the work environment is relaxed and casual, there was always a very strong commitment at all levels. Analysts summarize the work culture at Apple as fun yet demanding. I'm not sure that that is the case at Hewlett-Packard, where they are driven by shareholder value, which can explain the poor performance in terms of wealth creation.
In fact, John, you noted a high awareness level at Apple, always looking for new customer wants more than immediate needs. Here is a company mastering sustainable wealth creation. No doubt about it. Apple masters the 6 components of awareness described in this session. That is the opposite to Hewlett-Packard, a laggard in regard to releasing new, unique products into the market. And with a poor culture reflected in its poor financial performance. Well, it's here that we come to the end of our session, John. That is the first part, awareness, of 3 sessions in which I will introduce you to the 3 fundamental components to succeed in a fast-moving and turbulent time.
Thanks, Carlos, for this exciting mentoring session. And thanks for recording this session. It will be mandatory for my people to listen and watch it.
I appreciate your comments very much. You are very welcome, John.